Good morning, class. This lecture is the concluding part of the lecture on relevant costing. We have already had the first part of the lecture where we tried to put the topic into perspective. We also looked at the specific principles when it comes to identifying relevant costs for decision making. We looked at relevant costs of material, relevant costs of labor, relevant costs relating to the usage of machinery. All of these things are supposed to help us when we get a full-blown question. And from the first lecture, we came to understand that most of the decision areas where we will require or we're required to display knowledge in relevant costing is where we're taking decisions like making something, doing something or not doing it. I mean, what informs your decision to do this or not to do it? On cost basis, how do we capture all the relevant costs and relevant revenues? There are also decisions like whether you have to do something by yourself or you have to make someone do it and buy from the person. That is, to produce, let's say, some products from your own factory, or you just have to buy them finished from an outside manufacturer and sell them. Which of them makes sense? I mean, costs and revenue wise. So we're going to take one example. I think that will do for exam purposes because I've already set some question in this area and there's the critical need for me to do this video. So we're going to take one example on make or buy. This same example will do for perform a service in-house or outsource it. It's the same principle. So when we do this, the same principles can be borrowed to do other things. And you can read on this topic from chapter 19 of your textbook. That is on page 263. The whole of the topic on relevant costing begins from page 263 of your textbook, and that is chapter 19 of the textbook. All the things are beautifully explained in the textbook. In fact, the example we are even going to use to explain the principles of make or buy is picked directly from the textbook. So do well to read the textbook and solve all the relevant questions in the textbook. I'll also do my best to put this same question that we are coming to solve. I'll embed a question at the bottom of the video, of the YouTube video, so you can also download the question right from the YouTube channel and use it for practice. Okay, so let's look at a question that we want to solve. So we have this simple question where, let me read the question fully. A certain company makes 4 components. And the components are, you can think of them as products. 4 products, W, X, Y, and Z, for which costs in the forthcoming year are expected to be as follows. So this is the cost of manufacturing 1 unit of each of the products, W, X, Y, and Z. First of all, we've been given the level of production in units. We expect to produce 1,000 units of product W, 2,000 units of product X, 4,000 units of product Y, and 3,000 units of product Z. And these are the variable costs of making each of the products. First of all, we have direct material cost. It costs us, in terms of direct materials, 4 cedis to manufacture 1 unit of W, 5 cedis to manufacture 1 unit of X, 2 cedis to manufacture 1 unit of Y, and 4 cedis to manufacture 1 unit of Z. Direct labor, 8 cedis to manufacture 1 unit of W, 9 cedis for X, 4 cedis for Y, and 6 cedis for Z. Variable production overhead, 2 for W, 3 for X, 1 for Y, and 2 for Z. So this brings us to total variable cost of production for each of the products W, X, Y, Z at 14, 17, 7, 12 respectively. In addition to incurring these variable production costs, there are also some fixed costs which get incurred, some fixed costs which arise as a direct consequence of making each of these products. So you see directly attributable fixed costs per year, per annum, and committed fixed costs. Okay, so you should be able to distinguish between the two, and it is clear in the question. So we have incurred as a direct consequence of making W. So this is directly attributable fixed cost for 1 year of making W, the whole of the 1,000 units of W. So this is the fixed cost, 1,000. Incurred as a direct consequence of making X, 5,000. Incurred as a direct consequence of making Y is 6,000. Incurred as a direct consequence of making Z, 8,000. So these are fixed costs which arise as a direct consequence of making each of the products, which means that if we do not make these products, these fixed costs will by no means be incurred. That makes them straight away relevant costs for the manufacture of each of the products W, X, Y, and Z. But we have this guy also here. Other fixed costs committed 30,000. And this cost, just from the way it is put, communicates that it is a general fixed cost. It's not directly attributable to the manufacture of each of the 4 products. It's a general fixed cost, which means that whether we decide to produce the products W, X, Y, and Z or not, this 30,000 fixed cost will still be with us as a company. And in fact, just look at this word, committed. Even if the company collapses, they still have to be paying it. It's committed, possibly from trial contracts. And this understanding should make you understand where this cost of 30,000 committed fixed cost comes into the assessment, how it features into the whole of the assessment. Alright, so let's go ahead with the question. Directly attributable fixed costs are all items of cash expenditure. This is also very important. And for the sake of, the lecture, let me also try to do some tutorial here. A different question can break or can have the directly attributable fixed costs in components where one component, for example, is a cash flow and the other component not a cash flow. And it is your job as a student to be able to distinguish between the cash flow fixed cost and the non-cash flow fixed cost, which is relevant and which is not. But fortunately for this particular question, the question is saying that all the directly attributable fixed costs are items of cash expenditure, which means they are all explicit cash outflows and therefore cash flows. Okay. A subcontractor. Okay, so this is how you have to understand the question. So this is the full cost on manufacturing the products W, X, Y, and Z. Now the decision confronting us right now is to do a cost and benefit assessment about manufacturing these products and buying them from an outside manufacturer. Which of them is more profitable to us as a business? So let's see. A subcontractor has offered to supply the same products W, X, Y, and Z to us for 12 cedis for W, 21 cedis for X, 10 cedis for Y, and 14 cedis for Z. So if you decide not to manufacture the products and then buy them from someone who is manufacturing, this is how much the person is going to sell the products to us. 12 cedis, 21 cedis, 10 cedis, and 14 cedis respectively for products W, X, Y, and Z. So this is your task. Should the company make or buy the products? Before you say, yes, make, and of course, make this one and maybe buy this one, your decision should be informed by calculation of relevant costs and benefits. Right, so how do we go about it? In fact, you can go about it however that we can get the information that we need. So let's see one way that we can work it out. We can do a calculation, and it is best to do some of these calculations with spreadsheets. And I've always been emphasizing this. It's a traditional way of punching calculators. It doesn't make you get the skills that the industry require you to get employed. Even though in the classroom, you still be writing in the textbook punching calculators. In addition to that, we have to see how the same thing can be done the way it should be done. What I mean by the way it should be done is how you will be doing it at a job place. So we can have two sets of calculations. One we try to calculate the total cost of making each of the components, and on the other hand, total cost of buying each of the components. And then we look at the difference in costs. And when I say total cost, I mean total relevant costs. And everybody here by now, based on what we have done so far, should be okay, should not be able to sift out in any particular question or case which items of costs are relevant and which are not, which items of revenue are relevant and which are not. Everybody should be able to do that. If you are a little bit rusty about it, please go and read. Go and read more. If you need to extend your reading to other sources, please do well. Make sure you understand it. Okay. So by so doing, we can just do this. So, you can do them product by product. Or you can do a big table where you see all of them together at once. So I can say relevant costs of making. I can do a table separately for it. Or I can join it with relevant costs of buying. Okay. And we have WX. Okay, let me come here, shift it here a little bit. WXYZ. WXYZ, and we understand why it is repeating on it, because we are doing the two things at the same time: relevant cost of making, relevant cost of buying. So I come here, these are the items of costs. We have direct material. Direct material, of course, the question gave us the information at the unit level. Let's go back to the question and see. This is direct material cost of making 1 unit of W, but for the whole period we are going to manufacture 1,000 units. So you can compute the cost first of all at the unit level and later multiply by the total units of production, or right from the beginning you can compute them at the total level. It's your choice. So let me just use the unit level information. So direct material cost per unit. Direct material cost per unit is 4 for W, and it is 5 for X. It is 2 for Y, and it is 4 for Z. When we manufacture, we will incur these direct costs of material. When we buy, we will incur none. So you see, it will be dash here, dash here, dash here, dash here. In accounting, we don't normally write 0. To write 0, we put a dash there. Direct labor. Direct labor costs. Let me add the costs. These are our costs in Ghana cedis. So you can put the Ghana cedis on top here. Direct labor cost per unit in the question is 8,946 respectively for W, X, Y, and Z. So we do that. W is 8, 9, 4, and 6 cedis per unit. When we buy, it is the manufacturer's business to pay his workers. That is none of our business. When we buy, we are not going to pay this direct labor cost. So it will be dash, 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 dash. So just understand the exercise we are doing. Direct material cost is highly irrelevant cost if we choose to make the product ourselves. And in the same vein, highly an irrelevant cost when we choose to buy. The other item of cost, variable cost, is variable production overheads. So variable production overhead per unit in the question is 2 for W, 3 for X, 1 for Y, and 2 for Z. So we do just that. We write the same things here. 2, 3, 1, and 2 Ghana cedis. When we buy the products, we wouldn't incur this variable production cost ourselves. This will be the problem for the manufacturer we are buying from. So when we decide to buy the product as a company, variable production overhead cost will not be a relevant cost to consider. Okay. Then it doesn't mean that when we buy, we incur no cost. So we can put here, we can say purchase cost or cost of buying. So let's call it cost of buying, because we'll definitely pay something for buying. And of course, when we buy, the cost that we will pay for buying from the other manufacturer, we wouldn't pay that cost if we decide to manufacture it ourselves. So that cost will be dash, 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 dash for here. But it will be, what's the cost of buying for each of the products? Let's go back to the question. At the bottom, we have that information. A subcontractor has offered to supply units of W, X, Y, and Z, 12, 21, 10, and 14 respectively. Okay, so when we buy, that cost becomes relevant for the decision to buy, and it is 12, 21, 10, and 14 respectively for W, X, Y, and Z. Okay, so now we can, these are all variable costs, but separately for manufacturing it ourselves and buying it, so we can tally. So we will have 4 plus 8, okay, we can do 8 plus 2 will be 10, this will be 14. We have the same data in the question. 14, 17, 7, and 12. So we can repeat the same thing here. 14, 17, 7, 12. And this, of course, this will be the same thing. So 12, 21, 10, 14. This level of tallying is not strictly important. You can skip it or you can bring it because you're not exhausted with the items of cost. So I'll okay, at this point, because I'm done with the unit level data, the rest of the data, which is about the fixed costs, for the whole period, not unit level. So it is important that we scale this one up to the total level. So we can say units of production. That's the one I was saying we could have calculated them right from the beginning. So instead of writing 4, which is material cost per unit for W, we could have done 4 times 1,000, which is 4,000. But we have done it at the unit level first now, so we're just going to multiply this variable cost at the unit level by the total volume. The question said we are expecting to produce 1,000 units of W, 2,000 units of X, 4,000 units of Y, and 3,000 units of Z. So we just write those things there. This is 1,000. This is 2,000. This is 4,000. And Z is 3,000. It's the same thing here for the buying option. When we decide to buy, we'll buy the same quantities as we intend to produce. So this is 1,000, this is 2,000, this is 4,000, and this is 3,000. Okay. So when we multiply the variable cost per unit by the volume that we intend to manufacture or buy, we get a total variable cost first. Then we come and look at the fixed costs. So 14 times 1,000 will give us 14,000. 17 times 2,000 was the So 17 times 2,000, 34,000. 34,000. 7 times 4,000, 28,000. 7 times 4, 28,000. 12 times 3,000. That will give us 36,000. So this is the total variable cost of making. Now let's do total variable cost of buying. 12 times 1,000. This will give us 12,000. 21 times 2,000. Let me punch my calculator. 21 times 2,000, 42,000. 10 times 4,000, 40,000. 14 times 3,000, 14 times 3,000, 42,000. So right at this point, you are beginning to see the picture. Just at the variable cost level, you can even see product by product. If you take W, you can see if I manufacture, I'm going to incur total variable cost of 14,000 compared to buying it at 12,000. Just at this level, you now know which way you will go, but we are not yet complete. I just want you to see that the picture that we want to arrive at is beginning to emerge. Okay. Now, attributable, fixed costs. When we make the product ourselves, we're going to incur those fixed costs. And of course, you understand that when we buy them, those fixed costs, those attributable fixed costs will not be incurred, except for the general fixed costs, which, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you buy or you make it, it's still there. So, relevant costs to consider if we are making in terms of attributable fixed cost. This is 1,000, 1, 2, 3. This is 5,000. This is 6,000, and this is 8,000. None of these costs will be incurred if we buy them. But there's other costs, committed fixed costs. The committed fixed cost does not spread on the products. That is for the whole organization, for all the products together. That will be relevant here because we are talking about total cost. That is a cost which will still be there for the whole of the organization if we manufacture. So we have to and if we decide to buy two, it will still be a cost which will be there. We are doing it this way because we are looking at the total costs, all of the costs together. But you can also see that this cost cancels out. So it's the same as removing it from the analysis. When we buy the products, we will not incur the fixed costs that are generated directly from manufacturing of the product. But the whole organization will still have the common fixed costs to pay. When we manufacture, we will have the attributable fixed costs. And the whole of the organization will still have to pay the committed fixed cost. That's how it is. So it cancels out. So we can just get it off. Okay. So now let's total our total cost. This will give us 14,000 plus 1,000, which is 15,000. 34,000 plus 5,000, which will give us 39,000. 28,000 plus 6,000, which will give us 34,000. 36,000 plus which will give us 44,000. Okay, so this is the total cost of manufacturing. And then when we tally here, you will get 12,000 just repetition, 42,000, 40,000, 42,000. Okay, so these are the total relevant costs, both for manufacturing and both for making, buying. So we now can do subtractions to see where we are making gains for which approach and which approach should be the best to do. So when we manufacture W, we incur a total cost of 15,000. When we buy W, we incur a total cost of 12,000. So we make cost savings. So let me write it here. Cost savings slash, let me say losses. Okay, and let's do it W, X, Y, Z. So extra cost of making W is 3,000. When we make W, we incur an extra cost of 3,000. I mean, that 3,000 is the difference between 15,000 and 12,000. When we, extra cost of making X. So that will be making minus this, 39,000 minus 42,000. That will be negative. That tells you it is not really extra cost. It's savings. So if it is savings, we'll do it negative for you to know it's savings. 39,000 minus 42,000. Let me punch my calculator. 39 minus 42. Negative 3. So 3,000. So this extra cost of making, the one in negative, means it is extra savings. Now let's look at Y. When we make, we get 34,000 total costs. When we buy, we buy it at 42. So it's cheaper making it yourself. So when we do 34 minus 40, 34 minus 40, 34. That will be 6,000. That will also be negative 6,000. So this negative means extra savings of making. Where it is actually extra cost of making, that will be positive. If it is savings, it is negative. So when we make, we save money, 3,000. When we make, we save 6,000 when we make Y. We save 3,000 when we make X. We save 6,000 when we make Y. Let's look at Z. 44,000 making, 42,000 buying. So extra cost of making is 2,000. And that is positive cost. Okay. So this becomes somehow complete for the decision we want to make. So we now understand that for the 4 products, cost-wise, on relevant costing basis, we have to produce X and Y by ourselves. We have to produce X and Y inwards, inside our own company. Because when we do so, in comparison to buying, we save 3,000 cedis for making X, 6,000 cedis for making Y. In other words, if we don't make and we buy them from the outside manufacturer, there is an extra cost of 3,000 and 6,000 respectively for X and Y. And so we make X and Y, and we have to buy W and Z from the outside manufacturer, because if we don't buy and we make W and Z, we incur extra cost of 3,000 and 2,000, which means that if we buy them, we save 3,000 and 2,000 respectively on W and X. Sorry, W and Z. W and Z, sorry. Right. So this same presentation, my presentation is I don't think it's one of the best. But of course, the explanation is clear here. We could have done the presentation vertical. I think this is too lateral. Vertical, where we would have brought this part directly under the relevant cost of making, so that we could have subtracted, if it were under, we could have subtracted this one, for example, directly from this, and see the 3,000 under the same column. So that is an assignment you can, when you are working, change the presentation, do it like what I'm seeing right now. Put the relevant cost of buying directly under the relevant cost of making, so that you can do subtraction of this from this and put the difference of 3,000 just under the same column. Same for all of the other columns. I hope this tutorial says some good use for you. It solves your problem. This tutorial helps you to understand the concepts. The presentational style in the textbook is a little different, but the picture, we are trying to create the same picture. In fact, you get the same values. So also try to read how I solve the same problem using a different approach in the textbook, and maybe come to a conclusion on which one is more understandable for you. Right. So let me conclude the tutorial. In addition to what we have done right now, it's purely on the basis of costs and revenue. In fact, in this particular case, we didn't even consider the revenue part, because there was no information on sales revenue from selling 1 unit of the product for us to calculate profit or something. But it's okay. The assumption is that if we buy them, we are going to sell them the same amount that if we manufacture or sell. So that is really not the point. It's not relevant for the consideration. The differences are in the cost. So this is what it is. Other considerations that you need to do in addition to these cost valuations are some of these things. If component W and Z, those are the ones we said we have to buy, right? Because it's too costly. It produces extra cost of making of 3,000 for W and 2,000 for Z. But these are some other considerations, even if we decide to buy them. If components W and Z are subcontracted, that is, if you buy from the outside contractor, the company will have spare capacity. How should that spare capacity be profitably used? In this particular analysis, we are assuming that, in fact, we didn't consider the usage for the spare capacity that will be produced from buying W and Z. But these are the considerations we have to make on top. Are there hidden benefits to be obtained from subcontracting? Will the company's workforce resent the loss of work to an outside subcontractor? You have to consider all of those things. If we buy, is it going to create some disincentive for the existing workforce? Because they feel good if you are doing things themselves. Sometimes they also get a sense, some ill feeling of maybe in the future we are going to lose our job now that we are giving the contract to outsiders. You have to consider all of those things. How are people going to feel? And when you get how possibly they will feel, that puts you in a good position to manage the situation. Will the subcontractor be reliable with delivery times? And will they supply components of the same quality as those that we will manufacture? Does the company wish to be flexible and maintain better control over operations by making everything itself? Because when we subcontract, we don't get that same level of flexibility and control. So all of these things need to be considered on top of the cost evaluations. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope the video helps you to understand the concepts.